Hi, I am Pastor Andrea Swingler. We're back again talking about understanding the spirituality of drug addiction. The last segment that I did, I was talking about the kingdoms of this world. When you look in Luke chapter 4, you see the devil had took Jesus. The Bible said the Spirit of the Lord led Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And while he was in the wilderness, the devil had said to him, make these stones turn into bread, throw yourself off the pinnacle, and I will give you the kingdoms of this world if you worship me. And so in Luke chapter 4, verse 6, when Satan said the kingdoms of this world belong to him, he was talking about how Adam, during the fall, relinquished his power and authority and handed over Satan his authority. But when Jesus came, he gave us back all power. That's why Jesus was able to say in Matthew, all power has been given to me. And that's why the Bible also said Jesus made a public spectacle out of the powers of darkness, that he went down to the grave and took the keys back. And so we have that power. So the kingdoms of this world belongs to us. Even though Satan is occupying in them, okay? The Bible said the kingdoms of this world has become the kingdoms of our God. The media belongs to us. Entertainment and art belongs to us. Religion belongs to us. We have power over the kingdoms of this world. Now, what is the kingdoms of this world? As I mentioned before, you have the media, you have entertainment and art, you have philosophy, you have literature, you have religion, you have government, you have education. You have business. These are the kingdoms of this world, and there's many more. Some of them, some people say that you have 7 mountains: business, arts and entertainment, government, family, business, all that. But listen, there's so many kingdoms of this world, and they are systems, and they are corrupt, and they are demonic, okay? And not all of them are, okay? You have the pharmaceutical kingdom, the pharmacos kingdom, and that's the point I want to make. And so when I understood the kingdoms of this world, the Lord told me, he said, that's when you write the book, you write it from a kingdom mentality. And so I wrote the book based on the pharmacos kingdom, or the drug kingdom, okay? And out of the pharmacos kingdom is where it has to do with drugs. It has to do with sorcery. It has to do with casting spells. It has to do with magic. And so the pharmaco kingdom can be good to a point. Like, for example, if a doctor prescribes you prescription drugs for an ailment, then that's good, and you take them as prescribed, okay? That's good, okay? But a lot of times, the pharmaco kingdom I'm talking about is from a negative perspective as well as a positive. And so I want to get into what is the pharmacos kingdom. And then we're going to talk about, is addiction a disease, and is addiction hereditary? Okay. The pharmacos kingdom, okay? The Bible says that as a Christian, we are required to pray for all people, all that's in authorities, okay? We are ambassadors, we are representatives of the kingdom of God, okay? And we have to pray for entities, okay, that these kingdoms don't continue in spiritual wickedness. We have to take authority over them, okay? And so entities, I'm talking about the pharmacos kingdom now. The pharmaco kingdom involves drug courts, drug treatment programs, okay? All of these entities are established by God, okay? In other words, you have drug treatment programs, you have rehabs, you have detox, where people go and get detox off of drugs. If God doesn't set these entities up, drug addiction will just run rapid if we didn't have laws to prevent the abuse of drugs. It will be chaos. So God allows these entities to exist to restrain the addiction. And so the Pharmacos Kingdom, drug treatment programs, rehabs, they hold back this principality, the Pharmacos Kingdom, because if there wasn't these type of programs, people would be messed up. People wouldn't get no help. Okay, it would be chaos. And so part of the Pharmacos Kingdom is like I said, drug treatment programs, DWI, educational programs. When a person gets pulled over for DWI, driving while intoxicated, they have programs for them to go to. I used to be a DWI counselor. And as a counselor, I did educational groups. When they come in with DWI, they've been pulled over, they blew past the 0.8. Then I would have to do the assessment on them. I would have to see, was there any history of mental illness? Was there any other DWIs? Did you have a family that was, a father, mother that was on drugs and alcohol? I had to do the assessments. And when they came in, I also had to do groups. I had to give them addiction treatment. I had to show them the consequences of driving while intoxicated. And even in the courts, they would have those who have been caught with a DWI. They would have them come to court, sit in a booth, and they would show a family that had been killed in DWI, that lost a loved one. And it was supposed to bring the person to the realization that, you know what, remorse, I don't need to continue to drive drunk. Okay, so I would show videos like that, but I would do a lot of talking, being myself was a drug addict and I abused alcohol. So they kind of knew that I had more than book knowledge, okay? And so I would teach them stuff like that. Listen, I would talk to them when I had the chance, when I had an opening. I would talk to them about their purpose. Listen, don't you know God love you? You got caught with driving under the influence. You could have been killed, and so forth, you know. And so they would, some of them would think about it. Some of them seemed like they was going to start the pattern of change. And just because they got caught with one DWI doesn't mean they have not driven prior to that. Some of them don't. Listen, when I was drinking, I drove drunk. I drove drunk. Let me just say this. Also, if you get pulled over for driving under the influence of drugs, okay, this is also connected to driving while intoxicated, okay? But I drove my whole life, for 18 years, since I was able to drive. I drove under the influence. I was drunk off of alcohol, liquor, wine. I drove under the influence of cocaine, pills. I mean, it was just, it's the grace of God that I'm still here. Okay? All right. So we have drug court treatment programs. All of these entities, they restrain the addiction. God has put these in place. Okay? He put these entities in place so that he can restrain the addiction, restrain drug-related crimes. That's why God laws is important. That's why the Bible instructs us to pray for government and pray for certain things, because so that we can live a peaceable life, so that they can restrain all the spiritual wickedness that goes on in this world. God has allowed these programs to exist. Then you have drug court treatment programs, and I had mentioned before drug treatment program. Drug court treatment program is where you can be on probation from selling drugs and stuff like that, and they will allow you to go through drug court. Okay, you come every week, you stand in front of the judge, your urine toxicology reports have to be clean and stuff like that. And then it's like you have to sign in. It's almost like probation. Okay, so that's drug court. Okay, a lot of cities, I know, especially in New York State, they have a lot of that. That's where I come from. Then you have, as I mentioned, the DWI educational program. Drug treatment programs are your rehabs, your counselor, your drug counselors, your outpatient programs. Then you have law enforcement agency, which consists of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the DEA, organized crime agencies, local and state police, probation officers. See, all of these are part of the Pharmacos kingdom. That's their sphere of influence, okay? And so whether they know it or not, and if they're not a Christian, because see, God puts us in a realm to do our calling. Once we get equipped and get edified in the church and we keep getting encouraged and we have our mentors and all of that, when we go out into the marketplace, there's a sphere, there's a realm of influence that you have that God will use you with. Okay, if you are a cameraman and then you are in the area, the sphere of media, that's what you do, and you use your God-given ability to impact the media. Some people have more than one sphere, and so these people, law enforcement agency, even though some of them are corrupt, some of them are believers. And that's their sphere of influence. And so they make a difference. They change atmospheres and they make an impact in their careers. Then you have substance abuse and mental health counselors. I'm a mental health counselor. So that's the Pharmacos kingdom. This is basically my sphere. This is where I have anointing to make an impact. Then you have the drug cartels. These are all part. Now we get negative now. These are drug trafficking, selling drugs. You got drug dealers. All of them are part of the Pharmacos kingdom. Then you have street gangs, prison gangs, motorcycle gangs that sell drugs and stuff and set up drug shops and barber shops and tattoo shops. Okay, that's part of the Pharmacos kingdom. Then you have the drug addict and the alcoholic. They're part of the Pharmacos kingdom, okay? Then you have the pharmaceutical industry, okay? They distribute drugs to facilities like drugstores and pharmacies and research places. So all of this is part of the Pharmacos kingdom. Then you have the medical field where they work on coming up with different type of cures to help people who have diseases, cancers, AIDS. All of this consists of the Pharmacos kingdom. Okay? Like I said, then you have the drugstores. Then you have inpatient drug treatment programs. Okay? You have halfway houses. You have 28 days program. These are your rehabs. Okay? You go in there. You have a counselor. You get addiction education. Okay? Halfway houses, you live there, but you're able to leave there, go to work. You know, you're on probation. You might be on parole. I used to work in a halfway house. I worked in rehabs. I worked in detox. And during my time as a substance abuse counselor, which I'm still am, those are the places that I worked. And so that's the Pharmaco kingdom. Then you have outpatient clinics, okay? Pharmacos. We're talking about Pharmacos kingdom. These places where if you're on drugs, you might go there 2 and 3 times a week. You have groups. You have a counselor. You have to take urine tests to make sure your urine is clean. They give you addiction education. You have you can process trauma and stuff like that. Now this is the world system, okay? And the church should be able to do beyond that, okay? Because a lot of times these secular treatment programs, they can't really see the root, the core, okay? They might can see some of the trauma and know where it come from family issues, but do they have the power to bring deliverance? And that's where the believer come in the church. Then you have methadone clinics, okay? The Pharmacos kingdom, okay? Then Suboxone clinics. These are people who are addicted to opiates, prescription drugs, Oxycontin, Lortabs, heroin. morphine. Okay, these programs are also put in place by God to restrain the addiction. So it's almost like if you're a heroin addict, they'll put you on methadone, okay, or Suboxone, which is a synthetic opiate. And so if you try to use heroin again, you would get sick. Okay, so they monitor this type of medication out for people who was on heroin. Now, I believe, and I want to be careful how I say this. If you're going to get fully delivered from drugs and alcohol, then you need to get total deliverance. See, a lot of times we have partial deliverance, okay, only to return back to what we came out of. The man that was in the temple and Jesus healed him, he said, "Go, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." He had, you see what I'm saying? So, partial deliverance. So when you're dealing with methadone and Suboxone clinic, they can help the the person who's addicted to heroin, and but they're still taking in a derivative. They're still taking in that substance. That spirit is still there, but it's being controlled. It's being monitored. See, but I'm talking to someone, listen, I believe somebody's going to be watching this broadcast and you're on methadone and Suboxone. You can be totally delivered. You don't have to take nothing, okay? Because you can't keep playing with that demon of addiction, okay? Because these two drugs, Suboxone, methadone, I was on methadone, and it would give you a euphoria high. Okay, a lot of people say, "Oh, it don't make you high." I used to be out of it on it, and that's one of the reasons why I got on it. I told the people I was a heroin addict, and I got on it. But even though I did heroin, but it was not really my main thing. My main drug was cocaine. Okay, and never did crack, but I was a full-blown cocaine addict, and I was a prescription drug abuse addict. I did all kinds of downer, anything that would make me down, and anything that would make me up. I did speed. I did all of that. I'm surprised. Listen, God had to restore my mind because I did so much chemicals that the doctor told me, you're gonna end up in a mental institution. but God, He delivered me. I'm so serious. You got to get this book. You have to. You will see part of my testimony is in this book, and so the methadone I was on, when it was time to detox, oh my God, it was horrible. It messes with your bone, the calcium in your bones. It was the worst feeling in my life, that methadone. And so, total deliverance is available to you. Somebody who's on heroin, somebody's watching this broadcast, listen, you can be set free totally. And you don't have to have that addiction lingering around your life anymore. Get this book. Go to my email address, aswingler9@gmail.com. I will send you a copy of this book, and you will be blessed. Your family members will be blessed. It puts in perspective what addiction really is. And so we talked about the pharmacos kingdoms. And so all of those kingdoms, those drug kingdoms that I just mentioned, those are that whole under that whole umbrella. Okay, these kind of kingdoms consist your drug cartels, your drug dealers. Okay, all of that's part of that kingdom. See, it's a whole culture. When you deal with drug addiction, it's a whole culture. Okay, it's so much stuff that goes on in that kingdom and so much activity. It's just unbelievable. Just like in government, it's a whole culture in the political arena. Okay, these are principalities. These are chief spirits that have control, that motivate and encourage spiritual wickedness to some degree. Okay, and so the pharmacos kingdom is good because it restrains the addiction. But then you have the negative impact of this kingdom. For example, drug trafficking and all that kind of stuff. Prostitution, all that's involved in that. Sex trafficking. All that's part of the pharmacos kingdom. Okay? Again, get this book. It is available. Now, to help you understand what kingdom is, I left out a piece here. Okay? Even scientists and biologists, they understand kingdoms. They had listed 6 kingdoms as it relates to biology. For example, they listed the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungi kingdom, the protacid, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, kingdom. And then there's 2 bacterial kingdoms. One bacterial kingdom, listen, these organisms, they thrive in boiling water under the ocean. Okay, under the ocean, there's vents and there's volcanoes under the oceans, and it's hot under there. That the oceans, the way the ocean functions, that's a whole nother culture, right? And so you have bacteria, live bacteria over that. Okay, they thrive off of volcanoes. Okay, this particular bacteria. Okay, for example, if you go to Yellowstone Park, okay, that water, that environment, or the Dead Sea or the Great Lakes, there's bacteria. There's bacteria over these particular waters, but they thrive off of boiling water. Then you have another kingdom that has bacteria in it. And I'm giving y'all some biology lessons, so just bear with me. Because I'm trying to show you how God sees the world. He sees the world in kingdoms, okay? Then you have the other bacterial kingdom is where it consists of parasites. It's where we get strep throat, and it's in most of your vitamins, and it's in your antibiotics. See, these are bacterials, okay? And it's in your yogurt, okay? And a lot of times when we get these shots, that's what, now, I want to really be careful with this. I don't get no flu shot, because the flu shot is nothing but another bacteria being put in you. I don't get a tuberculosis shot, TB shots. I have to for my job, but every time I get them, I get sick. I get sick. I don't have TB. I don't have any redness, but I be sick as I don't know what. And so some of this man-made stuff, God created all these bacterials, and they're kingdoms, okay? But some of this man-made stuff, that's a whole nother thing. And then you have the fungi kingdom, which consists of mold, mildew, and yeast. Okay. Then you have the protists kingdom. Okay, these are single cells, and they consist of algae, slime, and then the last 2 is your plant kingdoms. Okay, every plant, and plants are able to produce food within themselves. Okay, it's a scientific word. I can't think of it right now. That they make their own food through their leaves, okay? And they also give out oxygen, and trees also give out oxygen, okay? That's how we get the oxygen that we breathe in the world. God is so awesome. Then you have the animal kingdom, okay? And so I said that to say this, that when I think about God, you have to think about God as He has a kingdom mindset. Because remember, when you're dealing with God, you're dealing with a king. Okay, and so that's why I mentioned last week having a kingdom perspective, because the mindset has to be that we are women and men of the kingdom, okay, and we have to look at our God as a king, but He's more than a king. He's a king on our level, but He is the creator. You can't even describe Him. There's not even He's the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and He's the end. Okay? He's a wonderful counselor. He's so powerful. And His creation is so powerful that He even allowed plants to have a kingdom, bacteria to have a kingdom, fungus to have a kingdom. He is so powerful. We must have this kingdom perspective. We must. And so we're going to be talking about next is, and this is our second segment. But like I said, I'm only giving you bits and pieces so that you can, it's almost like I'm tickling your ear so that you can, okay, listen, I got to get that book. Okay. So I want to talk about, is addiction a disease? Because A lot of people say addiction is a disease. Okay? And a disease is a malfunction that help you. Let me break it down. Let me break it down. Okay. What is a disease? When you deal with addiction, the concept of disease based on scientists and drug researchers, okay? They said that the brain, the reason addiction is a disease is that the brain is disease. That the brain has this obsession and compulsion, and they label the brain as being a disease. But one of the definitions they had was that a disease is described as substance abuse or alcoholism with biological, neurological, genetic, and environment components that cause discomfort, dysfunction, or distress to the individual afflicted. And so that's one of the definitions. They're saying that a disease, drug addiction, has biological, okay, genetic facts, and it also causes dysfunction and discomfort, okay? And the individual becomes distressed. Listen, we're out of time, but listen, I'm going to be back, and we're going to pick back up on our third segment about, is addiction a disease? Again, get this book. Go to aswingler9@gmail.com, and I will send you a copy of this book. And so be blessed. Until I see you next time, I am Prophetess Andera M. Swingler. God bless you.